This whole meeting is about strictly for pizza people. Some of us have been cooking for a long time, probably have never been introduced to an animal like pizzas, okay? It is unlike anything else. It requires a technique to do it correctly, okay? So, let's talk a little bit about New York style pizza. It's a thin crust, hand-tossed pizza. It's the big pies. It's not like true Italian pizza, which is smaller, more personal in a wood-fired oven. So when the early immigrants from Italy came to the United States back in the 1920s, they brought this concept of pizza over here, except then it was flatbread, and they weren't using nothing like what we're using today, okay? What they did was they took coal, they took brick, they made it in an oven, and they baked their flatbreads in there, if you will. Early settlers, Gennaro Lombardi. Does that ring a bell? The Lombardi pizza. One of the pizza margherita was the first, quote, true pizza ever invented by a pizzaiolo named Raphael Esposito. And he made it for Queen Margherita, the margherita pizza. And he made it in the colors of the Italian flag, red, white, green. Tomatoes, fresh mozzarella, fresh basil. So a little bit of the history. A lot of the earlier settlers were finding out that this was quickly becoming a, really popular thing. So they would sell their flatbreads on the street. John Sasso. Anybody know who John Sasso is? John's of Bleecker Street. Let's go. So these are all, early descendants of New York style pizza. Well, when it came here, it was decided that, instead of serving the more personal style, they would make it much bigger and serve it by the slice. So another characteristic of New York style pizza is a sliced pizza. There's a lot of pizzerias in New York right now that are doing this, and we do this, as well. So, another thing about New York style pizza is what's another characteristic of it? What kind of cheese do we use? Grande mozzarella. It is a defining characteristic of New York style pizza. You go to New York right now, they're all using Grande. That's what they're using. It's a really high butterfat cheese. So when people say my pizza's greasy, well, they're not educated. That's why we have a section on our menu that explains that. It's really high butterfat, okay? That's why it's so delicious. The melting properties of it are incredible. It doesn't burn. So, what's another characteristic of New York style pizza? Tomatoes, kind of tomatoes. It's an Italian plum, but it's a San Marzano tomato. It's a really, it's a really balanced tomato, really low pH, really neutral tomato that can be, added to make it what it is. So it's another defining characteristic of New York style. So big pie, slice, grande, San Marzano tomatoes. The true Italian style got bastardized, if you will, and was made this big pizza so they could sell slices out of it. So just a little bit of history about that. Thin crust, hand tossed. We make pizzas with these. We don't use sheeters. We don't use any of that. Everything you do is made by you. That's why technique is so important, okay? Because if you're making a big pizza like that and you go to lift it up and you pull a crust up and all the toppings are off, somebody didn't make it right. We use a high gluten flour, okay? A lot of gluten provides a lot of strength for that pizza, a lot of structure to hold that because it's so big. The high gluten also presents a slight bit of chew. It provides strength through the pizza. So if we do the pizza right and we make the pizza right, and the integrity of the pizza from crumb to crumb, which is the crust, everything in that middle part is the same thickness all the way across because we have gotten the technique right, we're gonna have a good pizza, okay? So that's what we're gonna talk about here. Another level of pizza is there has to be balance, okay? Balance meaning balance of crust, sauce, cheese, toppings. If we put too much sauce, it's a wash. It's a wash. You're not really gonna taste the flavors, you know, that you're supposed to taste, because one thing is overwhelming everything else. We put, you know, Rikers Island, I see this just murdered always, because everybody's taking big handfuls and rah, rah, and that pizza's that thick going in there. You know, there's not much balance to that. Okay? And also, we put too many toppings on it and we cook it. What happens to that top part of the dough? If we have insulated it with so much sauce that's wet, so much cheese, and so many toppings, what's going to happen to that top part of that crust? The bottom's going to cook, but the top's going to be doughy. It's going to create what's called a gum line, okay? Because it's insulated. It's the problem that we have with our strombolis. And we're going to talk closely about this. Technique. Pizza is not, it's not a free-for-all. I'm not just going as fast as I can go. Yeah, I can go fast if I've got correct technique, but I need to have the technique down before I do it. Pull me some dough out there, Slick. All right, so there's many different stages of fermentation. Anybody know what fermentation is? Let's talk. Perfect. This is perfect. Okay, for me, I'm not using this. For me, I'm not using this if I know we have better. This is blown, okay? This dough is so far past its optimal fermentation stage that it's blown. It's tacky. You see brown specks, dead yeast. I mean, the dough is dead at this point. What's going to happen here is when we put it in there, it's going to be flat. There's going to be no spring. There's nothing alive in there. There's no yeast that's going to pop off once it hits 140 degrees and give us that carbon dioxide blast that gives that dough its pop. It's called spring, oven spring. This is not going to give us that. But if this is all the dough we have, then we need to know how to use it. So this is blown. This is going to be very hard to work with, okay? There's no memory to this, so when I start forming this and I start working it, what's going to happen? It's going to tear. There's no give to it. It's gone. I mean, it's just blown. So first and foremost with dough, since this is so tacky, see that? Tacky, it's sticking to my hand. It shouldn't stick to my hand. Optimally, it'll be nice. It'll be smooth as a baby's butt. So cornmeal is my friend. And there's no better way than to get your cornmeal going in the box, okay? We go side to side. We don't go like that. Not up and down, side to side. So I want to find that dough and I want to get it out. So there again, let's talk about cornmeal use. If I've got too much cornmeal on my pizza and on my peel, where's that going? Into the oven. Now, is that necessary? No, it's not necessary. I use a lot of cornmeal here, none here, therefore I get none in there. And when I don't get any in here, it does two things. I'm not burning cornmeal. Burnt cornmeal imparts a bitter flavor. We don't want that on our pizza, okay? It imparts a bitter flavor, and we have to brush it out more often than we should. Am I saying that none's going to get in there and we don't need to clean it? Absolutely not. You know, a good, you know, if I go into a pizza place like Mellow Mushroom and I get a pizza, I immediately look in the bottom for burnt cornmeal. That's how I know they know what they're doing. Any experienced pizza cook will know this. You know, they'll look at the bottom and they'll say, "Well done, boys," or they'll go. So there again, you got to think about the whole process. All right, so any questions? Cornmeal is your friend here. Cornmeal's not your friend here, okay? So we're going to put a lot here. Make sense? We need to take all that tackiness off the dough. All right, so I've got pretty much a squircle here. That's a square circle. So if I formed that pizza right now, what would it look like? It's going to be a squircle. So the saying, if it starts round, it'll end round. So sometimes we gotta cut the corners and make it round. So when we make it round, we're gonna have a round pizza in the end, okay? Do I need to smash this thing flat? No. I need to leave a workable piece of dough. I need to get the air out of it so I can see the true dough. If I don't get the air out of it and I do that and it pops here, it's going to be flat on the edges. So that's why I always need to clean these edges up so I know what I'm working with. So, I mean, all of y'all understand the technique here of forming the dough. And that's sticking, so cornmeal's my friend. So many of you do this clockwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't matter to me. It's whatever floats your boat, but you need to get a consistent crust around. Now, the most important part, when I flatten this dough out, this is the crumb of the pizza. From here to here, this is the crust, okay? The crumb is the most important part because it's gonna carry the load, so to speak. So I wanna make sure that my thickness factor from there to there is consistently thick. I want it just as thick there as it is there and there. This is where we fail, okay? So when we're forming this, I just need to be touching these edges, that part of the dough, all the way around. As a result of that, it's getting bigger. It's gonna pull from the middle automatically. I don't even need to touch it. A lot of you guys get very palmsy with it. You get your hands down, so what happens is I'm pulling from the middle. When I pull from the middle and I get it stretched, thick, 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 very thin, very thin, very thin, thick, 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 thick. Make sense? So when that happens, I put a lot of pizza on it, I pick that pizza up, what happens? Or I run a peel under it under here, what happens? Shear. I just sheared a hole in it. And there's a number of reasons why that's gonna happen. We'll get to that when we cook it. So I'm working the edges. And with this really blown dough, it's differently. I don't have to touch it very much. Look, I just flatten it, form the dough, and I'm already there. At this point, I'm picking it up. The edges, the edges, the edges, the edges. And I can see through the light the thickness. See that? We're even. So, and look, blown dough, all I gotta do is that. What's it doing? It's overstretching. So I've gotta be aware when I'm forming that, I don't need to be so handsy with it. It requires very little touch when I'm working with blown dough. And you need to have finesse. This is not a power, this is not like underproof dough that has no extensibility at all. And it's like, you get through and your shoulders are blasted, Can't be so handsy with it, okay? In order to form a good looking crust with overproof dough, okay? So, everybody understand that? This is blown. We just work with blown dough. So what does it require for me to work with blown dough? Finesse, finesse, finesse. It's like you hug your baby sister. You're gonna do it with finesse. Unlike your boy right here, you're gonna give him some love. So, finesse, nice and easy. I don't need a lot of hands. You see, once I pick that dough up, it's pretty much done. You know what I'm saying? Look at it. It's falling on itself because it's blown. There's nothing left. So, all right. Everybody got that? Now, oh man, look at this. All right. Better. Optimal. We're about 4 or 5 hours away from optimal. So we've gone up the hill, here's optimal, we're coming down. This is what this looks like, okay? So, and this is not bad dough. It's a little bit tacky, it's starting to blow. By tomorrow when we use it, it's gonna be blown. So cornmeal is your friend. Lots of cornmeal here, none here. That way we don't get it in there, burn it, and have to clean the oven every time we put a bunch of pizzas in. All right, cut the pizza out. Side to side, not back and forth. Pizza starts round, it's gonna end what? It's gonna end round. See that bubble right there? So I automatically know I need to cut that off because that's not what the dough is truly gonna be. I don't need that on there. So there's a little bit of fabrication that has to go on in this dough. A little bit. So when I get here, lots of cornmeal, I'll start to work my dough. Everybody see this? Come around here. Yeah, y'all, you two guys, I want to make sure you understand what I'm doing here. So I'm not jabbing the dough like that. I'm slapping the dough like that. I'm just using my hand as a guide and then turning the dough with it. So guide, 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 turn. See how I'm turning it? I got my hand flat. So when I get there, flatten everybody out, especially on these edges. And then I work the edge, working the edge, working the edge. This part of my fingers is working the edge, working the edge, working the edge. See what I'm doing there? So now I'm gonna pick it up, edges again. Not here, not here, there. Does that make sense? So stretch. I get my thumbs in there. Whatever floats your boat here, as long as you're on the outside of the dough.
Which size dough is that?
18. So doing this, everybody see the middle? Look pretty even across. See the light? Everybody see that? So once again, flat, boom. No cornmeal here. No cornmeal here. Now I've got a workable palette, if you will. If you're an artist, this is your palette to paint. So now let's talk about toppings. Any questions about dough forming? What's the most important thing of dough forming? Anybody? What are we trying to achieve to get this result?
Evenness and thickness from inside to outside.
Somebody's freaking listening. Thank you. Come on. So you want the thickness. This is the most important part. The thickness factor from here to here. That's what's going to determine a pizza that's going to hold itself. The thickness factor from crumb to crumb, okay? All right? Everybody get that? Very important. This is where we fail, okay? So let's talk about toppings. Let's talk about sauce. All right, so sometimes your tomato sauce will be so thick that it's not workable. What do we need to do? Water's your friend. Water is in everything. Water is your friend. We add a little bit of water to it, or a lot, depending on how thick it is, to get the consistency that we want. Now, this is still a little thick, so, all right, so, a little bit of water, stir it in, get the consistency back right. So when I get the consistency right and it's workable, it's going to spread evenly on the pizza. I'm not going to have, it's not going to look like I'm spreading mayo on a bun. I've got some parts that are that thick and some parts that are smooth. So this thing in my hand is a spoodle, right? It's an 8-ounce spoodle. So I want to go a level scoop right in the middle of the dough. Right in the middle. I want to turn my hand on top of the spoodle as opposed to that. See what I do when I do that? But if I turn my hand on top, I get that. All right? The most important thing about your toppings is what? They must go where? They need to go to the edge. Every one of y'all, including that, wants to leave that much space between the crust and the crumb and where you start. What happens to pizza when it gets hot and cooks? Where do the ingredients go? To the middle. They move. It's like it's cheese. It's wet sauce. It gets hot, it's going to get loose. Everything's going to swim to the middle. So I need to make sure I'm starting from the outside, and I want to get it all the outside without touching the crust. What happens if I get sauce on the crust? It burns. Somebody say burns? Did somebody say that? All right. It does. It burns. It's not necessarily the crust is burnt, but it gives that sauce a burnt effect because it's on that crust. So we don't want that look on our pizza. So you want to be careful about getting it to the edge, okay? So good consistency, good technique of spreading. You're going to be a lot faster instead of wasting 30 seconds, 40 seconds, trying to get sauce all over it when I just went, done. So you're going to be faster. Correct technique. All right. Cheese. All right. Will's the king. Will said I was going to tell him you use too much cheese. Will, you use too much cheese. All right, so we talked about grande mozzarella and how great the melting properties were in it. Do I need to cover all the red sauce and hide it to have enough cheese on it? Negative. Negative. So if this is solid and it's right here, when it melts, it's going to do what? Spread out. It's going to cover my hand. So I need to be aware of that. Remember, balance. Balance. Too much cheese, you know, some people love it. But too much cheese will not necessarily ruin it, but it will overwhelm it. It won't be as good as it can be. We'll create a gum line on the pizza. We won't get that nice crisp veneer on the bottom. You know, a lot of different things will happen. So I like to go one handful is what I do. And I got big hands. See how I'm using both hands? See that? That right there, and then I'll go just a touch more. And that's it. That's plenty. So I want to clean what's ever left on the peel and get it back on the peel. I mean on the pizza. Okay? So if I'm making a Rikers, what's my thinking need to be as far as how many toppings? There's what, 7 different toppings on that pizza? So I need to think less. I need to think less as opposed to what I would be thinking with a pepperoni pizza, single topping. I need to think more, okay? So if I take a handful of that, a handful of this, a handful of sausage, I grab a handful of, you know, green bells, calamatas, everything that goes on it, by the time I get done, I got a pizza that's that thick. This is not deep dish. This is a thin crust, hand tossed, okay? So we gotta be thinking about that. If we overload this pizza, we're not ruining it, but we're not making it as good as it can be, okay? And will that crust hold up when it's cooked? Probably not, okay? So I'm not gonna go any further than that, but you get what I'm saying, okay? You know, when you're thinking of pizzas, less is more. Unless it's a Park Avenue, a cheese-based pizza. You need to add more cheese because it's a cheese-based pizza. It's unlike this red sauce and you know, just straight up cheese pizza that we got here. It's a cheese-based pizza. So
there's 2 to 3 different cheeses.
Yeah, I mean, you need to be able to balance. You need to understand. I don't just go willy-nilly with handfuls of cheese, but I need to think, okay, it's a cheese base, there needs to be a little more. If it's a Park Avenue, it's a classic white. It's a cheese pizza. Cheese needs to be there, but I don't need to kill it. Balance. You know, balance is the key, and it's going to require y'all to think about that when you're doing it, okay? So, all right, so we're at this point of the process. So I've got to get, this is the hardest thing that every noob goes through, is getting this pizza off here and getting it in here still round, right?
Right.
So what's the most important thing right now that I'm doing?
That it moves.
That it moves. That what else?
Get the cheese off the peel.
The peel is clean. Okay? If the peel is not clean and I've got cheese up here and I go into the oven, pull, cheese is on the bottom of that pizza, what's going to happen when I run a peel under it? It's stuck. Now, if you're working with me on pizzas and you really want to piss me off, ask John Rice, you really want to piss me off, don't clean the peels. So it's just, it makes the job that much harder, okay? We eliminate a lot of mistakes by doing it the right way. So we clean the peel. So I didn't put any cornmeal on this peel, right? This pizza's actually been sitting there longer than it should have, right? So that's good. So I give it a shake. What happened right there when I shook it? Downside. So I've got these lines on here as a point of reference. So if I'm buying an 18-inch pizza, I want to pay for 18 inches of pizza. I don't want a 16-inch pizza, right? I want 18 inches because that's an 18-inch pan that's going to go on it. So what do? Look at that. crazy. Re-clean it, come to the oven. And for me, you will get more comfortable with this the more you do it. There's several different ways. As a noob, I prefer the shake. So what I did right there was the peel moved, the pizza didn't. The pizza hit there and it was like, whoa, what's happening? This peel's coming out from under me. So it keeps its shape. So I've successfully done that. I have been doing this for quite a while. It ain't nothing for me to just bam, bam, you know, every time. And for a lot of you guys, it's the same way. But for the noobs, this is the easiest way until you get confident, okay? This is where, you know, the importance of technique comes in. Pizzas are round, they're not square. They're not football shaped, that's how it happens, okay? So it's the hardest part of the process to master, and it just requires confidence. The more you do something, the better you're gonna get. So, you know, experience will be your greatest teacher there. But if you have knowledge about how to go about that and get to that point, it's a lot better. We don't make as many ugly pizzas, okay? So if I had terrible technique on my pizza and all the dough was on the outside, none on the inside, and I just raped it by just pulling it out and elongated the pizza, what further happened to the middle of that pizza? It's terrible now. It's terrible at this point. So this is a different animal than sauteing, than grilling, than making sandwiches, than making salads, okay? It's a different animal. It requires much more technique, okay? So this is not just, you know, do whatever to a pizza, throw it out, put some cheese and sauce on it and put it in the oven. It's not that, okay? So in order to make pizza correctly, we got to follow the technique. We got to do what I'm explaining here, okay? So let's say the dough's underproofed. We've sold more pizzas than we thought we would have. The pizza guy just made this dough 2 hours ago. How is it? Max, go in the cooler on the right side, top tray, and I'm going to show you an example of that, okay? It's underproof. It hadn't had time to jump. It hadn't had time to ferment, okay? So what happens in the fermentation process? What is yeast doing? How does it rise? Let's talk about that. Yeast is bacteria, but yeast is feeding on the complex carbohydrates in the dough. Very simple, the sugar, okay? It's feeding on that, and when it feeds off that, it's like when we breathe in oxygen, what do we breathe out? Carbon dioxide. It's the same thing. So the yeast is giving off carbon dioxide into the dough. It's releasing gas in the dough that's making it rise. See that? See that? That's a prime example of that. All right. How many people love to see that at 5:30 on a Friday or Saturday night? So whoever this guy is, he's about to get work. So for me, you know, this dough's got to come way down. And it's actually not that bad. So you see my bubbles there? So I'm not getting a true, just shave that off. And I'm gonna do the same thing, get my crust going. That's an 18. All right, hold up, Max. Hold up on that. What's that? Yeah, all right, so let's go ahead and talk about this. We'll get back to this. All right, so in the cooking process, when I am checking dough, Alessandra, this is for you. I want to make sure that the bottom is done. So how we do here is we're basically cooking pizza from the bottom up. So these big soapstones in there are that thick. They're very hot. They're really hot, and they're really, you know, we cook pizza at 550 degrees. You have to have high heat in order to cook good pizza. If you do not, you're not cooking good pizza. You need that dough to spring. See how this dough is popping up? That's the spring in it. That's the spring. See that? Much bigger than what we started. So when we look at the bottom of the pizza, we say, we're getting real close there. Real close. We're about 30 seconds away. So when I lift the bottom and spin it, because why do I do that? Why do I move pizzas to different positions in the oven? Cooks evenly. When I put pizza on a spot, what happens to that spot? cools down. So I move it to another hot spot, keep it going. To allow that space to recover. So I'm good now. I already know. I've already moved the pizza so I know it's not stuck. Okay, here's another thing. We get in the middle of a rush and we just, we stab under not knowing what this pizza's doing. I like to go there, spin it, put it to the back corner. Why in the back corner? It's the hottest spot in the oven. This is a brick-lined oven, back, top. So it's almost like a convected air because when the heat rises, it bounces, it's a refractory brick, it bounces back off, okay? So it's bouncing off that back and the side, so I'm gonna get, I'm gonna cook a pizza faster like that, okay? So I need to remember to do what in a second to that pizza? Turn it. So I wanna make sure the other side gets that same love, okay? So this right here, underproof. This is really easy to work with. I can spin, pop, do whatever, And I ain't got to worry about, overstretching this. If that dough was blown like that, would I be able to do that? No. It would split. There's just no, there's no strength. This dough is underproof. You can tell by the bubbling. So what's going to happen when I put that in, we're going to get a lot of bubbles. Because there's a lot of yeast in there that's going to go crazy because it's underproof. All right, so I'm going to spin and turn it back. So, so how should the pizza look from a color standpoint? Yes, sir.
A question about your working the ovens. You want to put new pizzas in the front of the oven, so you move the old pizzas to the back. Is that the method?
You want the newer pizzas to go to the back to finish in the front, okay? So it's hotter back there. We keep things moving faster. Now, when I fill this oven up, is it smart when I take them all out to fill that oven back up? No, I need to rotate. This oven is working hard. This one hadn't. So I put it in there, let this one recover, and then fill that one up. So a smart oven worker will know that. He will get maximum performance out of his oven if he can do that. So, everybody see what I'm saying? So rotating pizzas in and out of an oven, allowing that one to recover, killing this one, and then when all the pizzas are pulled out of that one, putting everything in that one, killing that one, and letting that recover. So smart. It requires some thought. It's not just, see, we do a lot of things just what's in front of us we do. There's no thought to it, okay? There's a rhyme and a reason. So we need to think about that as pizza cooks. And I do realize Willie, when he's here, is the only one that really works ovens. I know Alicina does. And you need to think about that, okay? How to effectively get the most out of these ovens, okay? Just working out of one oven all night is not the way to do it, okay? So I'm gonna check my pizza. So if I look at this, what do I think about that? That's perfection. That's perfection. That is perfection, okay? Now, this is a gas-fired oven. If this was a coal-fired oven, it would be a lot different. Italians have a theme. They say, true Italian pizza is not brown, it's black. Because they want that charring, bubbles that imparts that smoky flavor in that dough. This is different. These people are different. They're not sitting in here going, I know what true Italian pizza is. This is not. Well, this is a bastardization of true Italian pizza. Remember that, okay? So this is perfect. Everybody sees that, right? See it? So when that pizza comes to my table, I'm going to eat it with my eyes first, and I'm going to say, wow. My experience is already, I've already set myself up for a good experience, because the bottom line is we're not just cooking to get the pizza tickets off the rail. Why are we cooking? Somebody answer that.
We got customers buying food for customer satisfaction.
Yes. Customer what?
Satisfaction.
Bingo. Customer satisfaction. So everything you do is actually going to sit in front of a table, and it's either going to wow them or they're going to go, this And I've seen some come out of this kitchen. It's gonna be real. So that's why it's important that we do things correctly. There is a rhyme and a reason for this technique that I'm talking about. Balance, thickness factor. A lot of cornmeal here, not a lot here. There's a reason for that. When we can do that and you can master that, man, this is a breeze, you know? So we need to think about that. So instead of just, you know, if you don't have the technique down, you need to be really focused on what you're forming here, okay? I don't mind running 14 minutes on a pizza if I'm getting, you know, I'm getting a masterpiece every time. I mean, we can, you know, we don't want to cut corners, so to speak, and edge out quality for speed. We don't want to do that. You know, me as a consumer, if I go in somewhere, I don't mind waiting 18, 20 minutes for my food if my food is perfect. So we got to remember, you know, we have an expectation on us. Bravo, 23 years. Broad Street, 20 years. Sal going on 10 years. And they're the same people eating at all three restaurants. So automatically they're coming in, this is a Dan Blumenthal, Jeff Good establishment. I expect great service, great food. And when they don't get that, because, you know, we're back here just making pizzas willy-nilly, don't really know what we're doing. This is the purpose of this, okay? It's to give y'all a better understanding of how to do it and how to be successful at your job. See what I'm saying? Make sense? When you spend your money, do you want it right? Yeah, you do. Yes, you do. If you walk into a restaurant and you fork over 30 bucks and you got crap, you ain't gonna be happy about that. You're never gonna go back there again. Make sense? So there again, the importance of, all right. What do you do with that though? All right, so as opposed to this dough, which is undercooked, which is not very extensible, okay? Extensible is a big word meaning it's got give, okay? It's gonna be very much different from this dough. Now y'all remember the ball, go give me one more ball so I can do a side-by-side comparison. So, how do I get this dough out of there? Give me a piece of that dough out of there. Based off what you learned today. Camera's on, buddy.
Hey John, why don't we use those ovens where you put the pizza in one end and it comes out the other like Domino's?
Why?
Yeah, why don't we make it so different?
Well, in order to make pizza correctly, we're not mass producing crap, okay? If I put one pizza in what's called an impinger oven, it's got that conveyor belt, goes in one side and out the other, I'm not necessarily making a quality pie. We are staying true to form here, you know, with New York style pizza for one. You know, we're using this mom and pop, you know, company out of New Jersey called Marcel and Sons. You know, legit, like we met, what was his name? Chef Bruno? Louis, yeah. Really thick Italian accent, really funny guy. You know, we're using all the right components to make great pizza. My opinion, an impinger oven is crap. You're not making great pizza. We're not mass producing crap. We are making quality pizza. Show me. Side to side, not up and down. There you go. All right, stop for 1 second. Stop for 1 second. All right, so he did it correctly with exception of he got none of that. That. It's gonna keep the pizza round. I'm just gonna stretch it and make it all kind of messed up. So cornmeal is my friend a lot here. See all that? Look at that. Look how cool that is. So when I flatten that out, what do I need to do? Bingo. Cut a little bit of that off so I can get to the true dough. Make it back round. So that, hey, listen up there, Slick. So that compared to that, press that down. It's a lot different. It's a lot tighter. It hadn't proofed. There's not a lot of, you know, that yeast is not releasing that carbon dioxide, which is stretching, which also makes this dough extensible, workable, okay? So, see that? See if I press it down, what does it do? That's called memory. It goes right back to where it was. So we got to put a lot more into forming this, okay? So as a part of our job, me, Max, and John Rice, and what's called dough management, look at me when I tell you this, this is the single most important thing we do in this restaurant, is to try to keep optimal dough at all times. Very hard. It is very hard, okay? So we would rather work with this than that, okay? Because it's not optimal. So if I'm looking at the fermentation process as a hill, we've climbed about halfway. Make sense? Instead of getting to the peak of the mountain, which is optimal. Make sense? Yes. Which is the best the dough can be. All right, so we understand that. So now, stromboli time. All right. I've seen this so Mickey Moused by many people. This is very simple. The success of a stromboli is hinged on one important thing, a couple rather, one important thing, but how I form this dough, okay? Do I cut dough off of a 14 to make a stromboli? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I want to take this and I want to just stretch the edge again, stretching the edge again, that's it. And then give it a little pull. That's my base for a stromboli. What this is doing is I'm the same thickness here as I am to here. A lot of guys, there again, this is the technique where we fail. We stretch the inside of the dough and we get that. How many times have you seen that stromboli that you know the dough is too thin on the top because you can actually see like where the cheese is. It's like molding to the cheese and it's not smooth, flat, round. How many times have you seen that? A lot. So I'm not going to get that with this because I've got an even thickness. I didn't kill it here. Any dough that I'm going to take off of this is after the fact. I want to make my shell and then cut around that shell. Make sense? So, all right. Let's talk about strombolis. How many people are we feeding here? One. Balance. This is another area we fail, especially when we make a Rikers Island. There's 7 different ingredients in that. So sometimes I see a stromboli that's that big around, that long, because somebody just has no idea of balance. So think, less is more here. I've got 7 ingredients to put in. I'm not putting 4 pieces of Canadian bacon, 20 pieces of pepperoni, a half a handful of sausage, and then so on and so on. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So let's make a Riker. So I'm going to pull a little less cheese out because I don't need that much. And I like to, when I'm working with strombolis, these big pieces, I like to tear them. I just think it fits and works better in there. And I may use 1.5 there. Yeah. So onions, peppers. How many people am I feeding with this? 1. There it is. So that's all you need. So what do I do then? Fold it, find the ingredients. I flatten it out and I find where the ingredients are. This is an important part. What's our biggest complaint on strombolis? Doughy. Why? We're not taking enough off. Okay? So let's think about this. If a calzone is folded, a stromboli is rolled. So rolled meaning when I'm cutting this excess dough off, I found the ingredients. I cut this excess dough off. I want to find them again. Make sure I can get all I can get off that. I think I'm pretty good, especially right here. That's how much dough is going up under. What does too much dough do? What does it prevent the insides from doing? Cooking. It insulates it. It's like, you know, it's like your attic is full of insulation to keep everything in and warm. So this is going to prevent the warmth from getting in. It's going to have the reverse effect. Make sense? So I need to make sure I find the ingredients again. And for me, this is where I roll it. Boom. That's rolled. So as you can see, both sides, I don't see a seam there. I don't see a seam there. See that? I don't want to be able to see that seam where I just closed it off. I don't want to see that. And then I can take it, I can form it again. I got a great looking stromboli going here. So I find the ingredients, cut it off, cut it off. All right, where's another area? What do I do right here that we fail at? So if I'm cutting from there to there, what's going to happen during the cooking process? No. If I'm cutting big gashes from side to side, what's going to... There you go. Pizza, the oven guy knows. The cheese is going to come out. That's not going to yield me a great product. Now, I want y'all to have a sense of artistry here and try to take your slits and cut them in the same area. So, cut them in the same area. I just do that. I put my finger down, got it, barely cut. And if it's not there, I just recut it again. This is going to give me a perfect looking stromboli. When it comes out, it's going to be beautiful. So, what do I do right here? A little wobble, wobble, shake it, as Ike says. I know it's off. I'm going to the corner because I know that's the hottest part of the oven. Now, I want to make sure I get a good cook on the bottom of this because I want that bottom to be closed. If you run under this pizza too soon, what's going to happen? Or the stromboli too soon, what's going to happen? Going to rip. This is going to rip because there's already a crease in it. There's already an area where the peel can hit dough and go straight through it. Make sense? So, even thickness. Do not cut any crust off of it. John Rice, I know you like to take an 18 and cut it in half. I don't like that. I don't like that at all because you are already compromising what's going to hold that stromboli in place and make it beautiful. It should look like a Hot Pocket, man. You know, it's sitting up on the plate. You know, it should look great. Everything's still in it. Everything cooked. Everything's hot. No raw cheese, no, raw dough. So, balance. The actual crust, we don't need to, we're not getting too handsy with it. We're giving a little bit of that, and there it is. So, balance from cheese. Do we put sauce inside of stromboli?
No. Sausage?
Sauce.
No, no sauce.
Sure about that?
For the stromboli? No.
Just say no again. Good. So, we do put bechamel inside that. Why? We can't necessarily heat bechamel up on the side without breaking it. Just doesn't look good. So pesto and bechamel are the only two, quote, sauces that go inside, okay? No barbecue, no,
What about a Frank stromboli?
there's no sauce.
I'm talking about the spin-off.
That's not a sauce.
It's a base.
Yeah, the point is it's really liquidy. Water and dough, bad combination. Like when your caramelized onions are swimming in liquid, what's going to happen? You're adding unnecessary moisture on top of the pizza. Unnecessary. We need to make sure that stuff's drained. Roasted red bells. Unnecessary moisture. Fresh mozzarella. We got to really make sure we're shaking off the liquid of that and that it's not going on top of there. How many Lombardis have y'all made that when you moved it side, water just poured off of it? Think. We don't want a lot of liquid on top of that pizza at all, okay? So, any questions? Any questions about the stromboli?
I have one.
Go.
Since you're the only one that can make one properly, you're going to have to work all day.
Precisely why we're having this meeting. precisely why we're having this meeting.
Formatting replaced the question.
Technique is everything. We are not mass producing crap. There's no sheeters, there's none of that. You're doing every bit of this with your hand. It's a skill. You know, this is an art. This is not, you know, throwing a burger on a grill, toasting a bun. And not really. Not really. All right, so I run up under my stromboli. Look at what I got. So I got a little speckle. See that? Look at the bottom there. That look good? So I'm gonna let that go about 20 more seconds because I want to make sure I sear that bottom. Make sure that if there is any dough there, I want it to be cooked, which there's not because I cut it all off. I found the ingredients, I cut the excess off. After I cut the excess off, I found the ingredients again to make sure that there was no more that I could cut off. I don't want to cut so much that I can't close it, that all the, you know, toppings are pouring out, but I want to get a close on it. I want to get that edge closed with as little as possible. Okay? All right, give me a pan. So, back to the side of the oven. Back and to the side. My side is completely up against that wall. I'm gonna get a nice even brown on that, and I'm gonna turn it, and I'm gonna do it on the other side. This requires me to actually cook the pizza. You know, this is the difference between what Dan was talking about Domino's does. There's no cooking a pizza there. They just put it in one side and it pops out the other, you know? So this right here, we have to actually cook, spin, move, pan at the right time, pull it at the right time. Make sense? Huh?
When do you cut it?
What?
When do you cut it? Put it back in.
You never, okay, we're gonna get to that. That's a good point, I'm glad you said that. So, a lot of times you guys are cutting the pizza, cutting the stromboli, realizing that it's not cooked. There's too much dough because our technique was terrible. We put too many ingredients in there, so therefore the cheese wasn't melted all the way. Y'all cut it and put it back in there. What happens?
Everything runs out.
You just ruined the stromboli. You just ruined it. Ruined it. Or you cut it and put it in the turbo chef. I don't mind that it goes in the turbo chef. It just can never be cut. It can never be cut.
How is it supposed to know though? If it's supposed to be done or not?
Because you use the correct technique and you put the right balance of cheese to toppings in there. That's how you know.
Make it right, you ain't gotta worry.
That's how you know.
Make it right.
If you overstuff that like that Rikers, there's more ingredients in the Rikers than anything. If I put a crap ton of cheese in there, yeah, the cheese is not gonna be melted.
So you cut it, you find out that it's not done, you toss it and start another one?
No, no. You're pretty much screwed at that point. That's where you become a chef, and you turn into sugar. That's where you show what a chef really is. And you take a mistake and you make it workable. You make it great. Okay? So this requires thought. Thought on your part. Is this a perfect process? No. That's why y'all need to understand that and know what to do at that point. Okay? So obviously, we're gonna have to get that cheese cooked. I would rather you pop it in the mic for 20 seconds than to stick it back in the oven and do that process, okay? So we're checking our stromboli. So what you think? What you think, Alicina?
It's ready?
I'm gonna give it 15 more seconds on that side, just for dramatic effect. But that right there, my friend, once that is brushed with butter, is absolute perfection. And that sits in front of you and you go, wow. Wow, you've already started the experience because you did your job correctly, okay? You set these people up for that. Now the fresh ingredients and the really expensive, great grande mozzarella that we use after that, they do their job on their own, okay? So here again, we're using ingredients that's available to everybody, but everybody's not using grande mozzarella. I know that Soulshine does. I know Mellow Mushroom does. I don't know about Lost Pizza. They do? So they know. Secret's out. Pizza Shack does not. I know that for a fact. So the secret's out. We're using ingredients that are available to anybody, but not everybody's using, because we put a lot of emphasis in our ingredients. Is there anything freezer to fryer in there, so to speak? No. We cook absolutely every bit of this. That's the amount of effort we put into making great pizza. Okay? All right, so here. So this is the result. That's the result. I can pick this up and throw it across the room. It is a perfectly made stromboli, if I must say so myself. So that's what it looks like. And the reason why it looks like that is because of our crust was not thrown out to be a 14-inch pizza and then made a stromboli of. I went around it twice and that's it. I probably brought it to 10, 11 inches. And then properly put the right amount of ingredients, took the right amount of dough off of it. Now we're gonna cut, you're gonna have to come over here once. Now we're gonna cut it. So, when I'm cutting this, guys, y'all look at this. I wanna try to always take a slit and put it right in the middle, because that's where I wanna cut, okay? And I just, boom. All the cheese melted in that? I should literally, if this is made correctly, I should be able to hold this and just munch it like that. That's how well made that is. If it's falling all out and the dough is not holding it in, I didn't make it correctly. And that comes to your table, that's what it should look like. Any questions? Any questions? Lay off, man, I'm starving. Any questions? So Maxwell and John Rice, very important for y'all to see that too, because y'all are the standard holder. Yes, sir.
So let's get right to the basics. What are the most common mistakes that people make with stromboli?
Okay, overstretched dough, first and foremost. You're not giving the stromboli a chance to hold its ingredients. It's like throwing out a pizza. The thickness factor is even, so I'm giving the pizza integrity to hold, to carry the load. So first and foremost, overstretched dough. I'm not giving this crust integrity to hold that, okay? Secondly, too much cheese, too many ingredients. Remember, balance. How I made that Rikers is not necessarily how I'm gonna make a pepperoni, correct? So if it's a single topping, I'm gonna give them more. I mean, you wanna give people value. I'm not skimping on anything. I am balancing the pizza, the stromboli, whichever the case is, and I'm making it great, okay?
Any tips for Mark Anthony stromboli?
Balance. It's the same thing, balance. Everybody know how to make a Lombardi stromboli. We are adding shredded mozzarella to that to give it body, correct? So yes, we do, we are taking fresh mozzarella and we're making sure that the liquid is out, because that's the killer of that stromboli, is the liquid in the cheese. Yes?
One more thing that I see, you notice the slits on top? When a lot of our guys make them, the slits are too large.
Yes.
Everything runs out, or there's no integrity to the dough.
Bingo.
Okay, you've made your slits about 1.5 inches. It's not from side to side, it's just in the center.
Yes.
You see that? So the dough doesn't fall apart. If you make your slits all the way across, it's going to open up and it's going to fall apart.
So you're just, you're venting. That's all you need to do is cut a small slit, allow the heat to get down in there. Okay, it doesn't require that to that. All right, let's talk about bechamel based. If you make a bleecker or anything with a bechamel base, where should the bechamel go? Say it loud. On top of the cheese, not on the dough. Okay? So, you know, when you put that bechamel on the dough, it's automatically going to compromise the dough. I mean, it just is. Okay? So we put the cheese down, then we dollop bechamel on top. Same with the pesto. Same with the spin art. On top of the cheese. Any questions?
One thing that I see touch on, I see a lot.
Go.
You're finding the edge of the stromboli like you did.
Yes.
I see people mashing, pushing all those toppings together. When you push all those toppings together, it doesn't cook evenly because all the toppings are mashed.
Well, you shouldn't be mashing anything.
I
but
see people mashing.
Yeah.
That's why I want
Yeah.
to touch them.
Okay. So yeah, no mashing. You know, you're not going to punch your steak when it's on the grill, are you? You're not talking about what you're doing, huh? So the point is that this is going to be presented. You know, if you're mashing, you're automatically stretching the dough when you mash it. Not only, you know, whatever you're doing to the inside, I don't think that really matters, but the point is you're stretching that dough there. There's no mashing, okay? So when you build the stromboli, you should build it correctly as opposed to just slinging things everywhere, okay? Finesse. So don't overstretch the dough. Don't cut your slits side to side, slowly vent. Find the ingredients, cut the excess off. That's the most important thing is don't overstretch the dough. Very simple. If you want a good stromboli, don't overstretch the dough, cut the excess dough off. I would, but the wheat dough's got that much water in the bottom of it. There is a difference there. Same thing though. You cannot overstretch that dough. It's the same thing. If you don't overstretch and you give yourself a workable piece of dough that's going to have integrity and hold all of its ingredients, you're going to be fine as long as you balance what you put in there. Okay? Any questions?
I have a comment.
Go.
This is about timing. Okay, a good cook knows how to time things. So say you get a ticket and it has a 14-inch pizza, an 18-inch pizza, and a stromboli. If you're smart, which one are you going to make first? Bingo. Why? Because it takes the longest to cook. By the time, if you make those two pizzas first and you make that stromboli last, there could be 5 minutes between the time you put those two in and the time you put that stromboli in. And then what happens over here? They're yelling for the stromboli. Where's my stromboli? Where's my stromboli? And then you get all rushed and you screw it up. So when you see a ticket like that, always make that stromboli first. Get it in the oven. Let it cook. Okay, that way you won't have to cheat it. Get the whole ticket out.
Correct. That's a good point. It's a good point.
Okay.
Because another thing to that is if you've got a pizza that's sitting up there 5 minutes waiting on that, what's happening to that pizza? Or we got a burger or a sandwich or pasta or whatever. So those are very true. I think you guys understand that to a point. So any questions, comments, concerns?
I got a question.
Go.
On a Nola, how much provolone cheese?
Balance it. You're putting two different types of cheese on there.
Exactly.
So
For the new guys, how much is balance for an 18?
I would think of it like this. When I do it, I put 5 slices on there. So I go 2 here, 1 in the middle. And I allow the pizza river, if you will, to spread that. okay? But you have to balance the amount of mozzarella going on that. Same with the 4-train, same with the Park Avenue. Anything with multiple cheeses on it, you got to think about that. You can't put the same amount of cheese you would put on a cheese pizza and then, you know, that much cheddar on there. It's too much, okay? Especially if it's a sauce base and not a cheese base, okay? So balance. There again, balance. Keep saying that word, balance. You need to think that. You need to think, you know, Enola has what on it? Olive salad, which is what? Oily as hell. So I need to think about shaking that off, the balance of everything. So if I put a crap ton of cheese and a crap ton of olive salad on there with all that oil, what's going to happen to that pizza? It's not going to be very good. I mean, it'll probably taste good, but it's not going to hold up. You know, the dough is not going to be able to carry the load, especially if we haven't used the correct technique in forming that dough. So there's many, 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 many variables. That's the most important one we got to get right. That is. Okay? Huh? Yes. Yes. We can. I mean, all right. Every pizza, every stromboli gets what when it goes over here?
Butter and cheddar.
Butter and parm. Non-negotiable. Every one of them. That's how they are finished, unless the guests otherwise specify that they don't want that. That's the only time we don't do it. All right? I know we get lazy sometimes and we ain't doing that, but that's how we garnish our pizzas. Garlic. I mean, y'all know that. Y'all should know this. If we don't have the garlic infused olive oil, we use butter it with minced garlic in it, correct? And this, look, let me say this. This wasn't because y'all do a terrible job. I want everybody to be on the same page. A lot of times when we're training, it gets very blurred because we get busy. And that's understandable. There's not a real set way of training here, okay? It's kind of trial by fire, if you will. You know, you're kind of working on the hip of somebody else. When it gets busy, you just got to get the hell out of the way, you know? So, you know, to really, really, really show the true way how to make great pizza, we need to come together like this, just so everybody understands, okay? I just need to be touching these edges, that part of the dough, all the way around. As a result of that, it's getting bigger. It's going to pull from the middle automatically. You need to be able to balance. You need to understand. If we overload this pizza, we're not ruining it, but we're not making it as good as it can be, okay? The success of a stromboli is hinged on how I form this dough. Do I cut dough off of a 14 to make a stromboli? Absolutely not. So I want to just stretch the edge again. That's it. And then give it a little pull. That's my base for a stromboli. Let's talk about strombolis. How many people are we feeding here? One. Balance. So think, less is more here. I've got 7 ingredients to put in. I'm not putting 4 pieces of Canadian bacon, you know, 20 pieces of pepperoni, a half a handful of sausage, and then so on and so on. I'm not doing that. Is this a perfect process? No. This right here we have to actually cook, spin, move, pan at the right time, pull it at the right time. The more you do something, the better you're going to get. So, you know, experience will be your greatest teacher there. But if you have knowledge about how to go about that and get to that point, it's a lot better. We don't make as many ugly pizzas. Thank you for your time.